In the beginning of my second year of graduate school in anthropology, which was a very expensive attempt to convince myself that I wasn't just a struggling artist, I was sitting on my couch with Rachel, one of my career academic acquaintances. Maybe you know the type. Head full of high-minded theories and university funding, with a writing portfolio that maybe 50 people will ever read, and only a fraction of that actually comprehend. I had just sparked up a joint, and it was a real quality herb I managed to score from an undergraduate rugby player in exchange for some muscle relaxers. But no sooner than I had passed the joint, my landlord knocked at the door. I had just spent the previous summer homeless in Southern Illinois. Throughout my first year of graduate school, I was working as a barback in the type of low-key establishment that feels like home to both its employees and regulars. From the first time I walked into that tavern, I knew it was where I wanted to work. Good dive bars just have this certain appeal for me. Essentially, I was raised in one by my father, so whenever I spend time in a new place, it's one of the first things I seek out. The type of place where pretentious isn't in the vocabulary. Cheap beer, straight whiskey, dim lights, and people whose priorities do not huddle around status or trendiness. And I loved working there, but I barely made enough money to scrape by my first year. When classes ended that first year, myself and my dog Koi, a beautiful 55-pound pit bull Rottweiler mix, were unceremoniously evicted from my apartment, and I couldn't afford to move into a new place. My meager belongings, which was basically just some books, clothing, and notebooks, were stored in a coworker's basement. I spent the next 2 months just couch surfing and finding people to watch my dog on nights that I worked. See, I've never really been one to push the boundaries of friendship. There's always been a fine line between getting support and becoming a leech. And in either case, the supporter becomes drained, and the crutch they lend sprouts barbs that dig into anybody who leans on them too hard. I have always been much too sensitive to the debts I incur from those around me, and I ended up finding that on many nights, a concrete bench in the Japanese garden on campus was softer than any couch supplied by a sense of hospitality and goodwill, or even worse, pity and obligation. Regardless of couch or bench, I rose with the sun and evaporated from my temporary resting place like a morning mist retreating under the stream of dawn's light. I would walk through that still sleeping town with Koi Dog in tow to a vegan coffee shop. Cigarettes, coffee, and the morning paper occupied most of those days, with a little bit of writing as an attempt to fortify the walls of my psyche against this ever-rising tide of anxiety, depression, and physical discomfort that threatened to overwhelm me. So Koi Dog and myself, we became staples of that coffee shop patio that summer. Employees would come out on breaks to play with Koi and often brought food and drinks for the both of us. They were artists, DJs, musicians, but most importantly, people who understood struggle. I never asked for or expected their kindness, which was given freely and without barbs, but was just the type of support I needed to prevent myself from tumbling into a breakdown. They were beautiful, selfless, and genuine people. The type of people that I had been fortunate enough to meet no matter where I had traveled. So the first week of August, my student loans were cleared, but I didn't have a check yet. I could only find one apartment that would take a voucher for my loans and a pit bull. I signed a lease and moved in immediately. However, with the price of the rent, I realized that I could actually only afford it for 2 months. So 2 months later, as I'm smoking a joint with Rachel on my couch, I knew it was my landlord that knocked at the door. I told him I didn't really have any money at the moment, that I would let him know what was happening by the end of the week, wished him a good day, and closed the door. I ended up vacating my lease and moving out a week later, and another graduate student who became one of my closest friends turned his office into a spare bedroom for me. But as I sat back down on the couch, relit the joint, and passed it, I noticed this appalled look on Rachel's face as she took the doob in a slow drag. And as she passed it back to me, she said in a somewhat serious and thoroughly bewildered tone, "Are you on the path for self-destruction?" I couldn't help but laugh as I hit the joint and said, "On the path? It's my mailing address. People who are on that path, they stop here for a smoke and a drink, a last reprieve, one last moment to contemplate the abyss before stepping off of the ledge. It's not so much a path for me as a lifestyle." I saw this look of confusion mingled with a little bit of fear on her face that I can only assume is the look of somebody who has maybe read about a mythological creature, but then first meeting it, it's more large and foreboding in the flesh. But I realized in that very moment, I would never belong in academia. Throughout the rest of the year, that feeling was constantly reinforced. There was one night, I finally got a bunch of the graduate students to come out to my bar and see a band play. I knew a couple of the band members. We smoked a spliff on the back patio. I introduced my grad cohort, my grad students, to all the different people I talked to that night. Employees from my haven of a coffee shop, other musicians and artists, 2 construction workers, one from Dublin, one from Edinburgh, the owner of a late-night pizza place next door, the type of people that embody the thriving, beautiful traditions of a town, the people who take the stories and the pride in who they are and what they do and make it their own. At the end of the night, we were sitting at a picnic table, and a PhD student who had been in the department for 4 years asked me how I knew so many people. The haze of whiskey I had been drinking may have let my answer spill forth with a little more disdain than I would have liked, but the words still rang true. "How do you not know this many people? It's not a very big town. You've been here for 4 years. You patron all of their businesses. I don't understand. I thought we studied anthropology. I thought our studies were concerned with people, and not abstract concepts, but actual people with real stories. What the fuck?" I just couldn't understand how these people let themselves be this way. And that cliched metaphor of the ivory tower never felt so fitting. These people were self-exiled, locked away, too busy worried about their own funding or getting published in obscure journals, and it sickened me. It was a nausea that had been slowly rising in the back of my throat ever since that day with Rachel on my couch, and now I was choking on it. I went to graduate school to expand my knowledge, to have the academy give me the tools in order to write a beautiful text for all of us to be able to relate to, a starting point and a resource for our communities to learn and build and grow together. And I didn't find any of that. So at the end of my second year, I walked away. Coursework finished, fieldwork done, thesis proposal accepted, even a draft of my first chapter done. And I walked away. Now, I took a lot of positives away from graduate school. What I learned about myself and who I am and what I want in the world has been instrumental going forth, but leaving was absolutely the right choice. After all, it's led me here, reaffirmed and bolstered every day by being a part of a community that thrives and builds and grows together, seeing the people that embody the traditions, embody the work, and embody the ideas that we need to move forward with to build a community. I am so proud to be here, not as an intellect for the academy, but as an artist for the community. Yeah. Thank you.